Hello, welcome to the Pursuit of Excellence with me, Anthony Beirudi. Need your help real quick. If you like the videos, hit the thumbs up button right below, and please subscribe to get access to our latest interviews. Hit the subscribe button right there. Also, we'd love to hear from you about our interviews. In the comment section, tell us who you want us to interview or what you thought about the whole thing. Without further ado, enjoy the interview. All right, we're very excited today. We're joined by Marek Klassen. Thank you very much for joining us, Marek.
No problem. Appreciate it having me.
Awesome. So let's go back to the beginning. Where did you start playing basketball? Was there other sports? Kind of how'd you get involved with the whole thing?
Yeah, I've played basketball really my whole life. My parents both met in college playing basketball at SFU. So, it was always, I say always meant to be. Two of my sisters and one of my brother, we all played college basketball. So definitely a basketball family, but, we were encouraged at an early age. And I'm a huge advocate for playing as many sports as you can. When you're younger and trying it all out and testing it all out and developing those motor skills in different areas. I played soccer, ran track, baseball, did basketball. And then as I got to probably like grade 9, grade 10, I realized like, okay, it's either basketball or soccer, and basketball is inside and warm. So I went with basketball.
Yeah, no, and it's worked out, so you can't blame me. So what high school did you go to? What was your first team that you guys kind of got involved with?
So I went to Yale Secondary in Abbotsford. Went to Yale Secondary. Was fortunate that they were a very good team when I first got there. My brother's 2 years older than me, and so he, they won the championship in 2008, and we won the championship in 2010. We should have, we probably could have got one in between as well. We had a couple injuries. I think we came third. So 2008, 2010, they won in 2012. Won in 12. It was a really good time at Yale, and I'm very, just very thankful for my experiences there. We went undefeated my senior year, and that was really what propelled me to then be like, okay, I love basketball, but I want to be a professional one day.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys had some talent there too, right? Talk about what it's like to be in the gym with guys, every day that actually love it the way you love it. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people are on their own. They don't really have somebody to share the passion with. But you were very lucky. You had a couple studs that were there with you. What was it like?
For sure. And, when I guess I talk to a lot of high school kids, and I still do a lot of, work with a lot of them. And things are different nowadays. They're very different than they were when I was growing up. But one of the main differences I feel like is just like gym accessibility. When I was in high school, man, my coaches, Alf Reason, you and Roberts, like they would come and they'd open the gym an hour before school every day. So it'd be open at, 6:45-ish, and we'd shoot from, about 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock and go to our 8:15 class. But like that, we're in the gym every day. They preached, and they preached just to be the gym rat, to fall in love with, like the game and the basic aspects of just working hard and being in the gym together. So we got so much success, and even 2-3 years before my brother was there, so much success that Yale kind of became known as this basketball school, and kids started transferring in. So like when I was in grade 9, grade 10, all of a sudden we picked up, Matt Leckman and Kai Luke and then Jordan Blackman. We had a nice core, of guys that we had finished, I think, like 6th in the junior provincials. But it's just like it was just a really cool atmosphere. Coaches wanted us to be great, and they allowed us to get in the gym an unbelievable amount. Versus, I feel like nowadays it's like kids are texting me, I can't get in the gym. There's no hours. There's somewhat a parent has to be there, a teacher has to be there. I think things have changed, a lot in those regards. But yeah, no, I had such a great time at Yale, and it really fostered like the love of the game and the fact that like, I've been in the gym before where a coach told me like, hey, you're not leaving here until you make 500 shots. Okay. And you're not leaving here until you dribble the ball with your left hand 10,000 times. Like, okay. You're not leaving here until you make, 60 layups in a row with your left hand and none of them touch the top of the square. Like all this different stuff that developed this just like love for the game.
Yeah, and you know what? I think because of that, it's worked out very well for not just you, but Yale's kind of been a pipeline of high level performance players, and it's because they've been, they got the work ethic, and obviously, it was definitely a magnet school that got quite a few players back then when maybe it wasn't really happening, but it all came together for sure. Now, what was it like seeing your siblings doing well and playing well before you kind of had your time kind of deal? What was that like to kind of have somebody to look up to?
Yeah, no, it's always amazing to have an older brother, or an older sister, whatever it is, that's playing at a high level. And, Caleb was really, really good. And he won, like I said, he won the championship in 2008, but I got to bang and play against him, for years and years and years, play up on his club team, go and travel with him and play one-on-one against him. joined the senior team when I was in grade 8, grade 9 because he was there. Stuff like that is always key. And I was one of those kids who loved it, right? I was like, I didn't mind being the smallest, youngest, whatever. I was trying to mix it up with the older kids, trying to prove myself, trying to test myself every day. So that was a huge gift for me, for sure. There's no doubt. And it was interesting because then when he moved on, he went to college. It was like kind of a big eye opener for me. My first time I kind of been the oldest, and yeah, it was different, but I embraced it too. So
how early did you get involved with studying film and watching film? Are you a big film guy?
Huge film guy. I'm a huge film guy, but it's hard to explain. When I was in high school, I don't think I've ever watched my high school film. We didn't watch any film at Yale, zero. Al Friesen was not into the film. He was like, hey, it's about us. It's not about them. It's not about our past performances, what we can do in the future. But when I got to college, it was like, holy, we did so much film. And I just immediately saw the benefits to doing film. Like I can see the mistakes I'm making so that I can then not make them. I can see the positions where I'm making the most of my mistakes, or I'm missing most of my shots, or why am I doing this? And it became so evident. And then as a pro, now as a pro, I can't tell you, I watched 5 times as much film as a pro than I did in college. So one of the things I'm really talking to a lot of these kids about nowadays is like watching film of yourself is important. I think you need to know how you move personally, how you're moving.
We're not talking mixtapes. We're not talking mixtapes.
No.
You need to actually watch the game and see what's happening.
Yeah, because the thing is like, and some of the simple stuff that I talk about is like, do you know what you actually look like physically, how you move compared to other people? First of all, do you check out your body language? Are you that person who's like sitting in the side, doesn't get a shot, hasn't touched the ball in 3 possessions, so you're hanging your hat, you're not playing healthy, you're not talking, you're not communicating, you go sit on the bench, your head's down. There's a million things that you can dive into and watch on film. You don't even have to have the ball. So then when I pull NBA clips, or when I pull NCAA clips or pro clips, and I show them these, I can take a kid and say, hey, you need to work on this hook pass in this situation because you can't throw a pocket pass and you can't throw a chest pass. We're going to work on this hook pass. And I can show you 50 exact clips from Chris Paul, Donovan Mitchell, whatever. And he's making the exact same pass. And so when the kid actually understands it and looks at that pass, by actually watching that film, they're actually doing a little bit of imagery work in their brain. And then it's much easier for them to translate it into the read during the game. So it's huge. I think film is huge.
Let's go backwards a little bit. So you talked about your parents both playing university sport. That had to be pretty intimidating at a young age, or was it just exciting all the time that they knew? Were you the kid that was like doubting their parents, or were you the kid like, wait a second, my parents know what they're talking about, let me just listen to what they got to say? Or a little bit of both.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of both. For sure. And I think both my parents preached education. Like once we started getting to the place where, okay, we're going to be college athletes, all my brothers and sisters, they started preaching education and making your decision on school based on your education first. But one of the things that I tell a ton of people as well is I was very lucky and fortunate. My father was the director of Athletes in Action in Canada. And so, he was running sports camps all throughout BC, all over the place. I mean, we're talking, and Alberta too, like in a lot of places and overseeing a lot of them in Canada. And so he was bringing us to those camps, those basketball camps. And like at those camps are overseas professionals or NBA professionals. And like, I'm getting to meet these guys, right? Like my dad was the chaplain for the Vancouver Grizzlies when they were in town. And so straight up, like I was in the Grizzlies facility a lot, and I was watching those games in a box seat a lot and meeting people. And, I was young, but still. So the fact that I've met a lot of professional basketball players, I do 100% believe that played a huge factor now, me being, a 5-year pro overseas. And so that's why when I do go back home and I do talk to these kids, I'm trying to get myself in front of them as much as possible, just to almost like normalize the fact that, hey, okay, maybe you guys are not 6'8" and seriously like a really good athlete. And so won't get that sort of political look into the NBA, but maybe you can go overseas, maybe you can make a living, maybe you can be a professional. So that's the kind of stuff that we need to continue to normalize throughout BC. And that's something that my parents really, really helped me with. They're like, Marek, this guy, hey, this is Steve Jansen. He's played 8 years pro in Germany, teaches out in Langley. You're going to go get 400 shots up with him next week. And I was like, perfect. And now I'm going to compete against a professional. I think I can play with this guy. And like, it just snowballs into this. So.
Yeah, well, creating a belief is important, right? Knowing that it's possible. I mean, you were never really the tallest guy. So what was it like kind of knowing, hey, wait a second, I kind of fit in, even though I may not be the, 6'8", I may not have, dynamic jumping ability, but I can still play. We'll talk about that a little bit.
For sure. I've always been known as a high IQ player. Especially in the pro ranks. In the college ranks, maybe it's a little different. You have a system, you have a coach. But I think just, again, normalizing it, being around pros, you have to be around. In Canada, man, it's hard. Like You don't just go to an open gym and see 15 different NBA players and pros and be like, oh, wow, that's what that guy looks like. And that's how that guy moves. And when I was in America, like you really get that feeling and that vibe, and you play against a lot of pros. And, one of my good friends, David Holston, he plays in France for Dijon. He's 5'8". He's probably like 185 pounds, like pretty strong guy, but he's 5'8" and can't really jump. He's not super athletic, and he's been MVP of the top league in France for 2 years in a row. And so I show a ton of his clips to a lot of players and say, like, this guy's 5'8". Like, he's probably shorter than your high school point guard at MEI, Yale, Abbey, I don't care, wherever it is, right? And he's not dunking in games, I promise you. But how can this guy be making so much money and being MVP in one of the best leagues in the world, he's a fringe NBA player? Like, how can that guy be doing this? And those are the kinds of people you should study, be stealing stuff from. And so that if you can just take even a few pieces of his game and apply it to your high school basketball, you're going to be a superstar. So for me, even I'm not 5'8". Like I've seen guys that are a lot shorter than me and a lot less than me. So I think that sometimes we get caught up in that, like, oh, I'm not the Russell Westbrook athlete, or I'm not as tall as, Lonzo Ball, or what, you know what I mean? And it's hard because there's guys making it out there that there's always someone making it out there that's shorter or taller or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you do have a little natural cutness to you. When did weightlifting kind of get involved? When did you start lifting? When did you start taking it seriously?
I actually, pretty early, I would say. Grade 8 or grade 9, I was introduced. Kim Chapdelaine was her son, Matt Chapdelaine, as well. They were, working out with the Mowat football team and the Mowat basketball team. And my dad, they're connected through, her husband was the coach of the Lions at the time. And so then, they came over to Yale and started doing a bunch of our club team stuff. And so with the Chapdelaines, I've been very, from grade 8, grade 9, I was working with them. And I think building that foundation then led to me, like grade 10, grade 11, having the foundation of weightlifting things to start putting on serious weight, and with cleans, bench, squats, like your major lifts. And then I got to college, and how it is in America, man, they get serious with that weight room work. And I just honestly, it's hard to explain, but like one of my biggest things that I love about basketball is I love the grind of the work. I really do. Like I enjoy getting in the weight room for an hour and a half and pushing my limits. I enjoy doing the simple, just the routine of getting up shots, and like I don't get bored with that stuff, and it's just a lot of fun for me. So being in the right shape, being the right size, having your jumper tuned is things you got to be ready for.
Yeah, and falling in love with the process, right, of grinding it out, like you're talking about. I mean, that's a big deal. A lot of kids want to skip the process of actually putting in the work, of actually getting in the gym, and actually, like, it's like, oh, I need a trainer. It's like, you don't need a trainer, dude. You need to get in the gym. You need to work on your game. Like, you need ball handling. You need to do something in your basement. Like you need to start skipping rope. Like there's a million things. Are you doing your jumping? Are you doing your lifts? Are you doing your squats? It doesn't take much to learn how to squat and do it properly. And are you following those steps? And have you fallen in love with those steps? Because if you do, it'll make a difference.
And I feel like all the time I hear people say, like, oh man, it's the hard stuff is like going out and getting 1,000 shots and this and that. Like it's such a grind. I'm like, that's not a grind. Kids used to love that stuff. Like go outside and just hoop and play around and mess. Like that's the easy stuff. If that's hard for you, that's a problem. You're not going to make it very far. No. That should be the easy stuff. The hard stuff should be like, even at grade 9, grade 10, grade 11 level, like trying to eat well. Trying not to eat too much fast food and sugary stuff. That's the hard stuff. Saying no to those crazy sugar meals. The hard stuff is like, hey, like being diligent. Like, okay, you can't get in a gym right now, weight room right now because your school is closed or whatever. Like, well, like there's a million things on YouTube about single leg body work where you can get a ton of jumping, like you said, skipping rope, man, skip 1,000 times a day. There's no reason you can't skip, 300 times, 3 times a day to take you like 12 minutes. Push-ups. There's so many things. And that's the hard stuff, the diligent, the routine, that's the hard stuff. And then if you just mix in like, hey, like I'm out there hooping, having fun, loving the game, then yeah.
Totally. So you had a hell of a career at Yale. You obviously had a lot of success there. What was picking university like? What were your options? Kind of what were your thoughts? What was the thought process behind it? And then where'd you end up going?
Yeah. So I told you earlier on that my parents were very much, pick a school that has a good education, and you never know, maybe you get to college and you get injured or whatever it is, right? And just go to a place that they will have a future for you designed, and it starts with education. So I think I probably went to 10 different, I don't even know how, honestly, I probably visited a lot of schools down the West Coast. I wanted to stay somewhere hot, so I went to the West Coast schools. And yeah, I committed early, and I think it was January, I committed to Point Loma University in San Diego, and it's a Christian school out there. and D2 school. And by the time we had finished our tournament in March and we had won, provincials, and I had won all those awards and stuff, I had a lot of offers, like New Mexico State and Sacramento State and Washington State. Like there was quite a few letters that had come in, but I was just like, in my mind, I was committed and I was excited and I wanted to go to California. And I had visited the school and it was on the beach, and I was like, man, like I'm living right on the sand. Like you can't beat this. So yeah, I was happy with my decision, and I was just always taught like to, again, it's a different time nowadays too. 10 years later, looking at it, it's like a lot of players would have decommitted and gone to maybe a bigger school. But I just was like in a time where I was like, no, I gave you my commitment, gave you my word. You guys have closed up your recruiting class. Like I'm coming. So I went down to San Diego and spent 5 years there. I did a redshirt year. 2 times I guess one time officially I like asked for my release and tried to transfer to New Mexico State to play under Paul Weir. He had a bunch of Canadians there, and it was going to be a really cool setup, but the coach at Point Loma, wouldn't let that happen. But it is what it is, and I met my beautiful wife there, and everything works out, so shortly after Point Loma, I signed an agent and took off for my first year pro.
So let's not skip over the entire university experience there. You had, there's obviously some tough times when you're in university, and that's something that people don't want to talk about, and then there were some fantastic times. Let's highlight, something that was kind of tough for you to overcome, and then something that you genuinely enjoyed while you were there.
Okay. I think, that's a good question. I was a freshman of the year in the conference my first year. I came in, I was just so excited to grind and play and compete, and I was just like, yeah. But what's interesting is when I got there, I wasn't the starting point guard. There was a senior in front of me, and actually there were 2 brothers, and one was like a senior, one was a redshirt senior, and they were both in front of me. And so I was playing like maybe 10 minutes a game, and I was whatever. But I definitely wasn't a starter. And we did all these preseason things. Went to Chicago. I think we came back, and it was like our last preseason game. And one of the brothers twisted his ankle, and there was like a sort of a conflict with the coach, and they just both quit. They were like, "We're done with this. Like, we don't need." Like, one had transferred from Pepperdine, and one had transferred from, I don't even know. Maybe it's Cal State LA or something like that. They both transferred in to play together under this coach. Blah blah, all this different stuff. And like the day before homecoming, or 2 days before, they quit the team. Done. And so now I am the starting point guard as a freshman for this team, and it worked out fantastic for me. I started the whole year and was, like I said, rookie of the year. So that was a huge positive for me. That was like in my intro to basketball. I know a lot of freshmen don't get that opportunity to go out and play 30, 35 minutes a game. So that was pretty exciting. And I think that really set, just set the path for me to, really, really try and succeed. I think something that was hard for me, let's see. What was hard? Honestly, school was hard. I'll tell you that for sure. I chose an academic college. I didn't really like when I initially chose an academic college. I chose something that it's gonna be great. I'm gonna get a good degree. But then you get there and it's like difficult. It's difficult, and your coaches care a lot more about schooling. And if you don't make the right grades, then it's hard for the team. And so I spent a lot of time doing the extras and making sure that was all taken care of. And again, for high school kids, you have to remember like. Let me just tell this quick story. Just let me back up. When I was still at Yale, I get this call from the principal. Our principal was Jay Pankratz at the time. He had played for Fresno State, and so he had set up a bunch of college visits for me, et cetera. And so he calls me down to the office and says, "Hey, Marek, Tubby Smith has called. So Minnesota, the head coach of Minnesota has called and left a message saying he wants to talk to you and recruit you. And also the head coach of Yale University has called and wants to offer you a scholarship." And I was already committed. This was like March or April. I was like, whoa, like. What is happening? I was so excited. Anyway, so I'm like super, super, super excited. And anyway, Yale calls. I talked to them on the phone. Man, I'm I know Ivy League, that'd be amazing. And they say, "Hey, we're super excited about you. Like, fire your transcripts over. Like, let's get this. We need a point guard." And then they just never called back. And the crazy thing was, like, my transcripts just weren't right. Like, I was the perfect fit for them basketball wise. They were looking for that kind of point guard, that kind of sort of IQ player. And my transcripts just weren't right. And I just remember sitting there going like, I had an 82, 83% average. It wasn't terrible. But if I was to try harder in some classes and, probably like just strapped up a little bit more and had like a 90, 92, 91, whatever, a little bit more effort, that could have been a Yale, So anyway, that's just, again, I'm off course here, but.
No, you're not, because that's important. And I'll tell you why it's important, because a lot of kids don't understand what that 1% or that 2% means to your average, or if you actually take this stuff seriously. I mean, like, I'm coaching a kid right now, and it's like, you should be at Stanford. Like forget Queens or McGill. Like Queens
Right.
or McGill is great for somebody like myself. If I can find a way to get into Queens or McGill, that's like, wow, that guy totally overachieved at Queens or McGill or Point Loma. But if you can get into Yale or
Yes.
Stanford or Brown or Harvard, what are you talking about? These are life-changing opportunities. You have to take this stuff seriously. And some people are capable. Like what people don't understand is some people are capable of things other people aren't capable of. And then to squander that for what? Laziness? Like for no reason? I mean, I don't know. I think it's important. So I think a story like that, you know, you got a dream school like Yale call you, and it's not because you're not good enough at basketball that they don't take you. They cut you off because they didn't like a piece of paper that you sent them. Like, I don't know. That's pretty serious.
And I remember sitting in Jay Pankrot's office and him going like, Marek, this is a really big deal. Like this is an Ivy League school. I don't care if you're committed to Duke. You know, when an Ivy League school calls you, he's like, you could go and sit on the bench for 4 years and come out of there and run the world. Like, you know, something like that. And I was so excited. And I remember sending them the transcript, and because of obviously like the differences in America and Canadian schools, 82 to 88 would have been the A, you know, would have been a 4.0 average. And that would have been like on the team, have a good day. You know, Marek's playing for Yale and trying to make a name for himself in an Ivy League school. And instead 82 was like, gosh, you're just like another 12, 13,000 kids that we see every day. And so it's really interesting. And it's not like I was a bad student. I was a fine student. I just didn't put the full effort amount in. And that was a real big wake up call for me.
So you finish up your university career and you want to play pro. It's been something you've been thinking about for a long time. What's the process of figuring out where you're going to go and what that's like to find your first spot?
Yeah. And this is something, again, I've been talking to a lot of kids recently because everyone's got this COVID situation. So a lot of kids trying to play pro, a lot of kids, not sure what the next situation is. And it's actually really simple. The process is you hire an agent, done. You hire an agent and hopefully the agent comes to you. It's not a situation where you're looking for an agent because, they're always, if agents not looking for you, then you're missing a step. But, so I had quite a few agents that reached out to me and they were excited about it. And, I signed with an agent and he offered, I got a contract offer in Romania in June. I signed it, done. So I think that I waited, maybe a month after school finished, signed him in May, signed the contract in May for the agent. And in June, middle of June, there was an offer there. So done. But the crazy thing was after my first year, it was a good contract, but it was a terrible situation in Romania and the agent just didn't explain stuff to me. And he was just like, he was totally out for himself. So I fired my agent and then had a new agent. And like I'm on my third agent now. And it's like, there's a lot of things that people don't tell, but I think the biggest advice that I would tell college kids is when you finish, and even before you finish, like 4, 5, 6 months before you're done, be talking with your coaches. Hey, do you have connections with agents that are good, not just NBA guys, but NBA and overseas guys?
Yeah, and so you end up going there. What's it like? So you're out of the country now. So it's one thing to go from Canada to America. It's another thing to go from America to Romania. What's the cultural experience kind of shift like?
Yeah, that was a huge shock for me, for sure. We go there and the coach was crazy. Like we're practicing minimum 2 times a day, maybe sometimes 3. And it's like no English. We have a full translator, a full coach who's just translating to the 5 American guys. Might have had 6 American guys. It was crazy. And just dog world. Everybody's a vet, everybody's 25, 26 plus and mature. And it was really crazy. So, and then after I left there after like 4.5, 5 months, I left in December or January, because the GM literally brought me into his office and was like, "Hey, Marek, you're playing fine. Like we think you're a good player and stuff. But we have this other guy's name's Igor, and he played for us 10 years ago. He just got fired from this team in Serbia. He just had a baby. He's looking for a job, and so I'm giving him your job." And I was a rookie. I was like, "Are you joking? Can't do that." I'll text my agent and tell him that. And I text my agent. He's like, "Yeah, he can do that. Like they're going to have to pay you a couple months extra, but you're gone, like you're leaving." And I was just like, this is unbelievable. You can just fire someone for no reason. And so, like literally a month later, like I moved into my apartment and I left and I went to England. And I finished up my season there, had an MVP season in England. So it all worked out, God is good, but it was a rude and serious wake up call for me to be in Europe my first year. I thought I was a really good player. I thought I was going to go and dominate. And it turns out politics, it turns out age, it turns out like ethnicity. Those are all things that can hold you back in the game, and you have to be ready for to go somewhere else and be on their line, their turf.
It's funny that you go there and have an MVP type season, because it was when I interviewed Randy Knorr, he really only had two types of seasons. It was either a complete failure and it didn't work out, or he was the best player in everywhere. It was like, if you just believe in me, I'm better than all the other people, and if you get in my way, this is going to end really poorly. And so it's interesting that you had such a struggle at one spot, and then you go to the next spot, and all of a sudden it turns out spectacularly. What led to such success at the next spot?
I'll tell you what, and that's really funny that you said that, because a lot of times it is like that. Like, at the end of the day, if you're comfortable, and this is what happened to me in Romania is difficult. My first experience, your first experience as a pro is never what you think it is. You come from these college places where you have like 5 trainers on the court with you. Everyone's taping up, and everyone's happy, and no one can get fired. And like, there's amazing equipment and facilities. And you go to like the next place, and it's just like, whoa. This is our facility. This is our training. This is our gear. It's not even Nike. Like, what am I doing out here? And it's just like, yeah, it's messed up. And, it's just the way the game is. So that was my first, I wasn't ready for it, to be honest. And my agent did a poor job of explaining what was going to be there. But when I got to England, I was so mentally in a space where I was not going to let anything stop me. It was like, no, like I refuse to I want to make that Romanian coach and GM, think this is the worst decision ever. They're going to look in 2 months and see my stats and see what I've done with this club here, and they're going to be shocked. And so I think it was like that. And, it was like your back was up against the wall, and my wife was on board. Like, we were like, nah, like, we're making this happen. Like, I can play in Europe. I know I can. And so it just went like that. And we just dug deep. And it's interesting because like then the next year I chose a team. I went back to England and I chose a team that was comfortable. And I went to a spot where it's like I was the captain, and it was like money was good and the apartment was good and we had a car and my family came to visit, and it was super comfortable. But my play suffered. It wasn't until like mid-season where I had to talk with the coach, and he was like, you need to step it up, like, or we're gonna have to go somewhere else. And I was like, okay. And like that intensity picked up, and then I started playing really, really well. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying about Randy Knorr and how you had that conversation with him, because there's a great, I have a friend of mine, Ian Perry, who's training to be a sports psychologist. And he said that the flow state, like your best play will come when the actual task is 4% harder than your skill. That's when you'll find the best version of yourself. So if actually the task in front of you, if it's about like 4% harder than what you can actually even manufacture, that's when you're going to totally just lock in mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever it takes to make it happen and give you that level of focus to compete. So when I went back to England, it wasn't hard enough. It wasn't the level that I needed. And so my play suffered. And the next year I went to Turkey, and it was like, whoa, this opened my eyes. This is real basketball. This is like the top levels in Europe. I'm playing top teams. I'm playing big money clubs, and the game got harder, but my focus went up, and I actually played way better than I did in England. So it was like, it's just crazy how that works, right?
Well, you know what it is? I think part of it is you've been trained to in high level, high stress situations, and you played in big opportunities. And so when those big opportunities arise and you see a challenge, it seems like you get your blood flowing, it gets your juices going. And so that's kind of cool for kids to see. Now, you're playing still, and you just had a baby. Congratulations on that. Very exciting. My kid just turned 7 months the other day. What's that like trying to now navigate? You have to take care of your career. You got to take care. You have a wife there with you, obviously very supportive. Now you got a kid as well. So you got a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. What's that like?
Yeah, for sure. Throughout my career, when I played in the best places, I'm often the youngest player. So when I played in Turkey, I was a young player. Like, guys were like, man, this is a 26-year-old point guard. Like, everyone else on the team was 30, or 30 plus and experienced, had a family. And I always looked at them and went like, man, that must be challenging. But Kingston was born almost 6 weeks ago now. And since he was born, I'm averaging, 21-7 or something like that. Like, I'm playing really well. And I don't think that has to do as much with like, I'm just playing better, as to do with the fact that, again, when you lock in on the task mentally, and you sort of go to the next level of preparation, and, there's more responsibility put on you, like, to be a pro, that's like the essence of being a pro. You're not a pro unless you've had a conversation with a GM or a coach where he says, hey, like, it's not you, but if we lose the next game, you're going to be fired. or hey, it has nothing to do with you. It's just that if we lose 5 games in a row or 3 games in a row, like, we will make changes. And that's what happens, like, as a pro. And so you go into these places where it's just make or break it. And yeah, it's been amazing. It's been really cool having a son. And I think there is added responsibility, but there's also added just inspiration for what's next. And again, like I said, people ask me, like, hey, that now that the son is born, like, are you gonna start, are you guys gonna start your family and move on? And is retirement close? And I'm like, man, I'm having an MVP type season out here in Sweden, and I'm just gonna keep going until the contracts don't make sense.
Yeah, no, and it's huge. And I think your ability to stay focused and locked in and play, and now you have something to play for, right? But one of the things I want to talk about real quick is, you said, when we're young, we're kind of a little bit sheltered in that, the world kind of doesn't allow us to fail. And there's no real, there is no conversation where they tell you, hey, by the way, if you don't smarten up, you're getting fired in 2 seconds here.
Right.
Or unjustifiably, this guy, we know him, we kind of like him. Yeah, we actually like you too, but you're gone. And it's like,
Totally.
but that's not fair. And it's like, oh, well, guess what? That's light. And so talk a little bit about the reality of the severity of every situation. And you have to be performing at the next level. And that's not just in basketball, that's in life. Talk about having to perform all the time.
Yes. And so that's the biggest thing, is it's not just basketball either. I was playing in for a really good team, a championship level team in Romania, and a guy got fired because he was at a restaurant, and he basically had a young baby with him and stuff, and he went over and kind of aggressively told someone to put out their cigarette in the wrong way, and it was the wrong person. The person was connected higher at the club and all done, and at a high level within the club, and he didn't know that, but just he just had a bad day, whatever, boom, that guy was gone. 2 weeks later, he was gone. I played in some really good clubs in Turkey, and then Ukraine last year with the Champions League team, and when you start getting up to the higher levels and there's more money and there's more responsibility, you start to realize it's not just about performing on the court, but it's also being a good person. It's also being professional. It's and that means looking after your body. You got to be ready to do 2 days and not complain, because they're paying you good money to do it. So you can't, you can't be like, guys, I'm tired, I'm sore. What? We're paying you for this, to perform, to play, to focus. You can't come to a 2-hour video session and not be ready to scout and film and be prepared and take notes and then not mess up those notes in the game. And so there's a lot of things that really go into being a professional athlete, if you want to make it to the next level. And that's if you don't have super NBA athleticism. If you have NBA athleticism in some way, you're 6'10" and you can fly, then there always will be people will always make excuses for you, and you can always kind of get around stuff, right? But for the rest of the people, and most of these European guys, I got to be locked into my film, my preparation. We have a game here. We're leaving tomorrow. We fly tomorrow, play a game on Friday. I already have a 2-page scouting report. We've already watched 2 days of film. I know every single player in their team, their percentages, their shots, their selection, what they're going to do. I'm the point guard. So when I'm guarding the point guard, if I'm coming out of the court and I hear them call for side, and I don't explain that to my players behind them, then I'm going to there's just so much that goes into it. And it's the next level from what people think basketball is in Canada. Mm-hmm. And that's just honestly, it's because we're a small country, and we don't have that sort of, we don't have a whole lot of people telling this kind of stuff, I feel like.
Well, no, it's huge, and the grind is important. Now, what's if you could go back in time and give a younger Marek some advice? What's 1 or 2 things you might tell a young version of yourself? Hey, maybe take a look at this. This might have been an option for you. You might want to smarten up a little bit.
Yeah, first thing was when I was in college, I was a very good athlete. I was a 2-sport All-American in track and basketball. I was a high flyer when I first got there and stuff, and I was just a really good athlete. And I never stretched. I never took care of my body. And that was kind of Yale days. Al Friesen was different. He was old school, man. It was no stretching. Get out there and dunk. And it was okay, whatever. And looking at a lot of the new science, and I send kids all the time. There's a 30-minute. I watch this guy, Tom Merrick. He's on YouTube, and he has his name's Tom Merrick. He has maybe 15, maybe even 30 different daily yoga routines, not just for just your hips and your things, but just for really athletic people who want to do 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, 30 minutes after. And so just doing that kind of mobility and working on your body is so key if you want to have longevity in any sport. That's something I would tell myself when I was 17, 18, hey, your hips are going to hurt, man. Your ankles are going to hurt. You could have done better by yourself. And starting that earlier. And the second thing would just be to continue to make connections. This game is political, and it's not just political, but it's a lot about connections. If you know the right coach, you'll get on the right team. If you perform in the right way in the right place, you'll get offers. My first Division I offer was from New Mexico State. I played in Abbotsford Snowball in grade 11, had 47, I think, against Rufus King. I don't know, something crazy, like almost 50. And it just so happened that the women's national team head coach was there, and she saw it and was like, who the heck is this kid? Give me that film. So she took the film, called Paul Weir and said, offer this kid a scholarship. Done. It was that simple. It was like she got the film, sent it over to him, and I never heard this guy's name before he called me and said, hey man, I watched this film, you had 47, you're coming here. And like, you just never know who's going to be in the crowd. You never know who's going to be watching your practice or who's going to get the film or see you on YouTube. And so that's what I would say is like in moments where you know that people are going to be watching, give everything you have, because one game, man, one practice could really change.
Well, but you also don't know who's watching, right? So you better be on all the time, because you never know who's going to pass that, because that could have been that went that way. It could have gone, hey, I just saw this kid. I thought you were recruiting him. You probably don't need this kid anymore. They seem like a waste of time. They got a bad attitude. They don't really seem like they're working too hard. For you, it worked out because you had a great game. But what if you were lazy that day, or you didn't feel like it, or you had a bad attitude, or somebody said something and you lost your fuse? All that stuff matters, right? So it's a big deal. But listen, I don't want to take any more of your time. Thank you so much, Marek, for joining us today. I think, I'm going to share this with a bunch of people. I think they need to see this because, I remember watching you play on the provincial team back in the day, and, you had a good group of kids, but, you were always focused. You always locked in. It was cool to see. You could tell you love the game at a young age, right? And it's kind of fun to see when kids really get after it. And, I thought the crew that you guys had back then was a fun group. I ran into Matt at Nationals in his fifth year when he was at Calgary, and
nice.
He was still grinding. He played like an old man because he was broken. He had a bunch of injuries, but he was fun to watch, man. I remember watching him in high school in the Kai, jumping over cars, being a goof, but. You guys had something special there, and it's cool to see it still going. So, congratulations, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And I think one of the last things I'll say is that when I was in high school at Yale, we were all just a bunch of just dogs. We loved the game, but even more than that, like we played in the provincial final, but we would have played if we would have heard that there was 5 guys playing across the way at a park downtown. We would have been there. We'd have been there with our shoes on, ankle braces on. Like, we would have been ready to go and dive on the ground. And we just loved the game. And it was like, anytime the ball was rolled out in practice, man, we had fights in practice and scraps because no one wanted to lose. And it was like, it was awesome, and it was such a different vibe because everyone loved the game and truly wanted to win. And I wish I saw more kids like that these days. I wish I walked into a gym one day and I don't even care about making shots. I wish I just saw a kid who picked up full court and just showed me he had some juice. Like, he just showed me his character, his personality. He wasn't letting anyone get across half court until he turned him 3 times. Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff I wish I could see today,
It's out there. It's out there. You just gotta, you gotta look for it.
Sure.
It wasn't everybody that was doing it back then. As you get older and you see this stuff and you turn into a grizzly old guy, and you're like, when I was young, we used to do it like this, and it's, things change for sure. But I bet you when you were doing it, they were talking the same thing about you when you were playing. When we used to have point guards and they used to play like this, and this Marek kid, he doesn't really do what they used to do, and so. It kind of changes, but those kids are out there, but it's rare, and it's, you got to find them, and they, you got to love the game, and it's part of the process. But, your success has been cool to watch, and I'm going to wish you continued success, and congratulations on your son and your family, and have a great day.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Take care.